Cape.
Welcome, Wargamers. My name is Doug with 2+ Stuff, and in this series, Making a Beastlord, we'll be reviewing the faction Beasts of Chaos over the course of 2019. I've committed to playing this faction as much as possible. I've committed to playing it exclusively to tournaments and events and things like that, but generally speaking, in my, we'll say, private games, I don't know, personal games where I'm meeting on game nights, it'll be the faction that I go to the most by far. And there is reason for this kind of spawns from the fact that if you are a viewer of this channel, you know that I flip armies quite a bit. Like, I'll get an army, I love painting projects, so I'll paint up like 1,000 to 1,500 points of an army, and then sell it, get a new project, and do it again. And as much as I love that, and will continue to do that, I wanted to kind of get good at something, because the idea of taking an army, painting it, selling it, and doing the process over and over again, it means that I'm always learning new rules. I'm always kind of at like a new to intermediate level with every faction that I play. And so I wanted to get good, as it were, at a particular army. I chose Beasts of Chaos because they have a lot of diversity within them. With the battalions, they can be Tzeentch, Nurgle, Khorne, Slaanesh. They can be Beasts of Chaos. They can be Tzaangor heavy and still be Beasts of Chaos. They can be a Tzeentch army with Tzaangor. You know, and they can do a lot of different things. And so it seemed like something I was interested in, very excited about, and I wanted to dive in. The purpose of this specific show, this series of shows, is going to be exploring the faction in depth as I play it across the year, and I hope to include things like interviews with people who have done really well with the army, everything from like painting and modeling tips to strategies on the table, things like that all along the way. It won't always be people who play Beasts of Chaos, but people who play Horde armies can definitely contribute information to help us. The problem is that such a rolling idea of thoughts that there's not really a good start point. So this video, kind of awkwardly and abruptly, is I'm going to show you my entire Beasts of Chaos collection, what I own, what is painted and what stuff at this exact moment, and then we're going to take a snapshot in time and see how Beasts of Chaos are doing right now. Because this weekend, actually as of this morning, the results are in for two major events, the UK Masters and CanCon 2019. And so those two events are really important because Beasts of Chaos did really well at both of them and wasn't really expected to by many people. And so I'm very excited about that. We're going to jump into that. So to let you know what's going to happen, I'm going to show you my collection right now, very briefly run through the list that I'm going to be taking this next coming week so we can review it next time I do one of these shows. And then I really want to spend time talking about these two tournament lists, not because this is a tournament-focused series, but because the faction as a whole it is an interesting one, trying to find out what is truly effective in the army. All right, so here's my entire collection. We'll go from left to right. We are looking here at 20 Ungor and 10 Raiders right next to them. Basically, most of this collection comes from two of the old battalion boxes from Warhammer Fantasy Battles. So the 20 Ungor came built to me as they were, and the Raiders I decided to go with because I wanted some shooting in the army. We'll talk about that later on. But in the front here we have a Beastlord and two Great Bray Shaman. Moving to the right, we have my big cloud of 60 Gore. And so realistically, eventually I'm going to start investing in Ungor again, but I already have 60 Gore. I thought they'd seem like a good speed bump to get painting. And next to here, so where it gets a little dicey because they're all kind of crammed together. Up front and personal, we have the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, as well as the Great Bray, not Great Bray Shaman, the Tzaangor Shaman on disc there. 10 Bestigor behind him. There's also 20 more Bestigor for a total of 30 over there to the right. In the back, we have 6 Enlightened and 6 Skyfires and a Chimera, and of course the Humble Gorgon. So that makes up my entire collection. Like I said, most of it came assembled to me, so I'm a little bit limited here, but eventually when I start branching out, I'll be getting into like Bulgors and Doom Bulls, stuff like that. One thing I did want to mention here up top is this Minions token set. If you can find it, it is amazing because it is jam-packed full of great tokens that work as spells and, what do you call them, primordial call points. So anyway, check it out. So that's everything I have. And as I said before, right before we left to go look at those things, it can be hard to understand what about the faction is incredibly good. We have a lot of things going for us, and this is kind of a broad Beast of Chaos looking at the faction compared to other factions, things like that. Like I said, I've played a lot of armies, and so I feel like I have a good sense. But what it really is, like before I got the Tzaangor and the Chimera parts of my army, And I think most people who had old Beastmen armies, we realize the army is a lot of chaff. If you own a lot of Ungor Raiders, a lot of even Beastlord to some example, there are a lot of horde units, a lot of bodies, a lot of speed, but they don't always do a lot of damage. It can be hard without certain units to remove enemies from objectives, even if you're trying to claim them through numbers. They'll whittle you down. They will weed you out. And so it's kind of interesting that some of the classical Beastmen armies are struggling to get traction, so to speak, in the new kind of interpretation with Beasts of Chaos, the book. And so the reason I bring that up is because we're going to look at these two lists that are tournament lists. And I am not a tournament player. It's not my focus. It's not my passion. My passion is storytelling. However, within that, there still needs to be elements of your list that do what the list needs to do. Like, it needs to remove enemy models. It needs to clear objectives. It needs to pin down things. It needs to shoot. It needs to run. All these things make lists function for the purpose of storytelling, of course. But you can still look at these lists and see what is good about them and how they do. Again, when you talk to me about like gaming and stuff like that, it's not a competitive thing for me. It's much more about fun, engagement, and narrative. That being said, I am going to events this year, and so looking at these things will help me immensely. So let's go check out these lists here. Taking a look at Dan Bradshaw, who is the winner of the UK Masters with Beasts of Chaos, and his list down below as posted by Ben Curry from the Bad Dice Podcast. Thank you so much for covering that event. Yeah, Zangor Shaman, 2 Great Bray Shaman, 2 units of 9 Zangor Enlightened on disc, which is disgusting. That's so much damage. 30 Zangor, which are incredible. 40 Ungor and 10 Gore, with, I'm assuming he means the Geminids there at the bottom. The Endless spell. Very interesting list because it's not as hordy as it could be. There's still, what is that? Still in the vicinity of 80 models-ish. I haven't really counted in my head. But very, very interesting in the sense that a lot of his points are tied up into 2 huge units. The Zangor Lighten on discs and the Zangor make up quite a bit. My goodness. I think it's like 480 points, something like that, for a big block of Zangor. Of course, the Ungor are going to function as a meat shield. The 10 Ungor are likely getting burned at the pyre, so you can summon things in with primordial call points. But it's a more elite army than you can do with lots and lots of Ungor and Gore and stuff like that. But it looks truly devastating. I want to see some game coverage from this, simply because if you're not familiar, the Great Bray Shaman are interesting because they can, of course, burn people at the fire to fuel the herd stone, get some primordial call points. But in addition to that, they make everything in this army faster. Every single thing counts as being a Bray herd, and so they all get an additional 3 inches of movement. And so a lot of speed, aggression, and hitting power. So it seems like the Zangor and the Ungor, the 40 block of Ungor, were really good anvils, and of course 9 Enlightened on a disc is a good hammer, but having 2 units of those is absurd. So that's really cool. We'll go over here to Joel McGrath, who, I will be honest with you, shameless honesty, this is the Beast of Chaos that I'm far more interested in playing. Where he took a Great Fray, Gabe Spawn, which is an incredibly fun one. If you're not familiar with this, it's like a Storm Host's work or Chapter Tactics if you're from 40k, where you make your army a specific type of army, so like Space Marines or Hammers of Sigmar. The conditions for that, though, is you have to take a certain artifact, you have to take certain command traits, all that kind of stuff. So there's limitations, pros and cons. For Gabe Spawn, anytime a hero dies on a 2-up, they turn into a free Chaos Spawn with a 50-point model. It's kind of nice. In addition to that, there is a command ability that everyone has where you pick a spawn on the table for 1 command point. You pick another unit that's wholly within 12 of that spawn, and they get +1 to all their melee attacks. So that is huge, and it is stackable. And while that does sound kind of out there, like most things that you can just keep stacking got nerfed or shut down or reworded in a very good way, this is not. And I think partially because the conditions to make it happen, it requires effort, like a lot of effort. And so I don't think it'll ever get nerfed like that. So looking at his list, we have the Beastlord, who is a general with Unraveling Aura, which is the name of that ability, the Chaos Spawn buffing. And the artifact you're forced to take, which is Mutating Gnarlblade. This is one of the coolest things ever. It's +2 damage to a melee weapon, but if you roll a 1 to hit with it, you take a mortal wound. But the Beastlord has a built-in reroll 1s to hit, so probably doesn't happen very much. He's got 3 Great Bray Shaman. One of them has the Knowing Eye, which is on a 4-up, you get a free command point at the beginning of your hero phase. And below him, all of his units, he has 30 Bestigor, 10 Gore, which is interesting. There's just 10 Gore sitting there. And then 1, 2, 3 units of 10 Ungor, which are very small chaff units. 6 Bulgor, which I don't think anyone really expected to see. They're heavy hitting, lots of wounds. They have good rend, good damage, but the thing is they die to a stiff breeze, and they're not the fastest. So compared to, they're kind of their main comparison is like to Zangor Enlightened. They're 20 points more than Zangor Enlightened, but you get less speed, fewer attacks, that kind of stuff. So, and then below them are 2 units of 30 Ungor Raiders, who I think are by far the most interesting inclusions in the list, because shooting is not something you would normally think this army would be great at, but they are exceptional at it. And that's kind of what I'm learning over time between Skyfires, which are a given, they're really good at shooting, and Ungor Raiders, who in the right-sized units can reroll 1s and 2s to hit, can be devastating. That's very interesting. In addition to that, they can also move 6 inches before the game starts. It's kind of like a scouting move. However, they could also be put up in ambush. So, because of the nature of tournament games, he could choose to do either. He could put him in ambush one game, he could put him on the table next game. Depends on his opponent, how much board presence he has. Very interesting stuff. And the last thing to note here is the Desolating Beast Herd Battalion, which I think makes this a 1-drop army, if I'm not mistaken. If it's not a 1-drop, it's very close. And a 1 or 2-drop. I only think I can't. No, I think it's a 1-drop. But that one is if you make attacks while you're in opponent's territory. If your unit is wholly within your opponent's enemy territory, I should say, and it makes an attack on a 6 to hit, it makes 2 hits. So exploding 6s. And so what you can do is ambush in Ungor Raiders, and now they have exploding 6s and tons of rerolls, and they can be very, very damaging units. So very cool stuff. He also took the Wildfire Taurus Endless Spell, which is interesting simply because I wouldn't have. I would have gone for the 2 command points, but he took it, and I'm kind of curious to know why, because I don't see people using it very much, but I'm very interested in it. Basically, it does mortal wounds, and whoever it touches has to fight last in the combat phase, which is great against your opponent. If it's coming back at you, it's the worst thing in the world. So, and I'm very interested in that. So this list is kind of more typical of what I think many old Beastmen and maybe Beast of Chaos players kind of are interested in, where it's a lot of little cheap dudes. The 30 block of Bestigors is top notch. 6 Bulgors is a welcome addition, and a lot of shooting. There's just a lot of shooting here for an army that you don't expect to be gun heavy. And in addition to that, everything except for the 6 Bulgors right here get speed bonuses. If you're not familiar, if you start your movement phase right wholly within, if you're a Brayherd unit, wholly within 12 inches of a Great Bray Shaman, you get +3 inches to your move. So Bestigor, Gore, Ungor, they all have a max range of 16 inches if they roll a 6 on that run die, and then can charge afterwards. So that is truly amazing. Ungor Raiders, you do that, and you combine it with the 6 inches they already get from kind of their scout move. You can get them way up the board. There's a lot of things you can do here that are absolutely interesting, and I'm so glad Joel put this together, and I'd love to have him on the show to be able to talk about it. So Joel, if you're watching by chance, I'd love to have you on, and if you know Joel, send the video. I would appreciate it. Based on this, because it's the kind of thing that I like to do, what I'm likely going to do is at some point try something similar to this, dropping the Bulgor for Zangor Enlightened, just because I own them, because I couldn't find any Bulgor in stores locally, but everyone had Zangor stuff for Tzeentch armies and that kind of jazz. Also, they're good in 40k, I think, so they were just easier to find. I needed something that could do some damage, so I went with Zangor stuff, but I do want to do Bulgors eventually, and just focus on expertly using screen units, all these little 10-man dudes. I'm sure one of these Ungors is getting burned at the pyre to summon primordial call points. My assumption is he chose Gabe Spawn because he's bringing in Spawn off the table. You can summon Spawn for 3 primordial call points, which is the cheapest it gets, and then using their abilities to buff nearby units. So that sounds awesome. It just looks like a ton of fun. And yeah. So chatting again briefly about the state of the faction. We are relatively new to the tournament scene, meaning there haven't been a lot of massive tournaments since our book came out. But our showing is very strong with some widely diverse lists, because if you look at the other CanCon entries, a lot of them focused on the Khorne Battalion, about maximizing rerolls 1s to hit and extra attacks from a Blood Secretor, which is really cool. And then, of course, Joel's, which is focused on a lot of smaller chaff units, and then Bestigor, Bulgor, and shooting to really take the day, which I thought was phenomenal. In addition to that, there's also the Zangor heavy side, which, I know some people on the Beasts of Chaos Facebook page weren't really excited. They want other things in the faction to be as good as Zangor. And I think that is the balancing act that GW has to go through. I think Enlightened are probably going to go up in points, and Bulgors are going to go down to kind of invert them a little bit. I think that's fair. But I'm very interested to see how non-Zangor focused stuff, you can have Zangor in there, but like almost exclusively that UK Masters list with Zangor stuff, which is really cool. It's just not my cup of tea, and so that's what I want to stay away from. And so, yeah, just seeing how the faction develops. If you are a Beast of Chaos player, I would love to see your list. Leave in the comments down below. I'd like to chat with you about why you do it. The main battalion I'm interested in now is the Desolating Beast Herd one that actually Joel took, where if you're in your enemy's territory, you get exploding 6s. That's really, really cool, given all the movement abilities and speed we have. Also, ambushing and things like that. Very fascinating ways of getting bonuses like that. So, I want to hear your thoughts about it. As far as me, kind of wrapping into, like I said, this is the state of the faction, and then it's going to be more of a weekly-ish type thing as I learn and play. With my collection, I do have a list I'll be taking. It's 2,000 points. Focuses on 2 big blocks of Gore, Bestigor, some Zangor Enlightened and Skyfires, and the Chimera. He's kind of the big icing on the cake there. Where I'm going to hold the line with a whole bunch of Gore and Bestigor, and then the Zangor Enlightened, Skyfires, and Chimera are the hammers who are going to come on his side and wipe things out over there. That's the theory anyway, and we'll see how that goes. So friends, thank you so much for watching me. If there's any kind of content you would like to know about regarding this faction, or any other faction, just gameplay, let me know in the comments down below, because I hope to have people on about tournament lists, about narrative lists, painting, all the things that are about this faction, because it's more than just tournaments. If you know me, you know the channel, you understand that. And so I just want to explore it in any way that you think sounds interesting. So leave in the comments down below, and I'll chat with you there.